Michael's first thought when the beam of light yanked him skyward was, I should have paid my rent. His second thought, as the ground blurred beneath him and the familiar cityscape disappeared, was slightly more coherent. Oh crap, I'm being abducted. And his third, as he was unceremoniously dropped onto a sleek metallic floor inside what was very obviously a spaceship, was, I hope they don't probe me. He groaned, rolling onto his side. His body felt weightless, like he was floating just slightly above the surface. But when he tried to sit up, something unseen pressed him back down, some kind of invisible restraint. Fantastic. His heart pounded, adrenaline surging through him. What the hell just happened? The room was dimly lit by strips of eerie blue light running along the walls. It was too clean, too polished, like something out of a sci-fi movie, except way more intimidating when he was actually inside it. There were no buttons, no visible screens, no windows to see outside, just smooth, curved walls and a ceiling that hummed softly, like the ship itself was breathing. Footsteps echoed. Michael craned his neck, trying to see who, or what, had just entered. He expected the worst. Maybe little green men, maybe tentacled monstrosities. What he didn't expect was her. She stood tall, regal, radiating an aura of authority. Her long silver-blue hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid metal, and her skin had a faint iridescent shimmer under the glow of the lights. She looked human, mostly, except for the elongated ears that curved elegantly upwards. Her eyes, impossibly bright, locked onto his, and then to his absolute confusion her expression contorted into sheer, unfiltered horror. Michael blinked. She took a step back. Her breath hitched. You're... The crew behind her, all similarly tall and humanoid but draped in sleek armor, recoiled in unison. One of them actually hissed. Another muttered something that sounded like a curse. Michael lifted a hand awkwardly. Hi? The woman's voice was barely a whisper. You're human. He hesitated. Yes? That single confirmation seemed to send a ripple of unease through the room. The guards visibly tensed, hands twitching toward their weapons. The woman, clearly the leader, staggered back another step, eyes wide with something Michael couldn't quite place. Not just fear, dread. And that was when he realized something that made his stomach sink. They weren't scared for him. They were scared of him. Michael exhaled slowly. Okay, I know humans have a reputation for being kind of annoying, but this seems like an overreaction. No one laughed. The woman, her uniform marked with intricate silver patterns that signified rank, gritted her teeth as though grappling with something she couldn't comprehend. Her fingers hovered over a sleek device at her hip. A weapon? A communicator? Michael had no idea, but he really hoped it wasn't a vaporizer. I don't understand, she said, her voice sharp, commanding. Humans don't exist, not anymore. Michael frowned. Well, that's incredibly rude. I happen to exist just fine, thank you. She ignored him, turning to her crew. They exchanged nervous glances, speaking in hushed, frantic whispers in a language he didn't understand. Michael sighed. I feel like you guys are talking about me, and honestly, that's pretty rude. The woman snapped back to him, her gaze intense. How did you survive? He blinked. Survive what? No answer. Only silence. Michael shifted against the unseen force pinning him down. Look, I'd love to do the whole cryptic conversation thing, but I have no idea what's going on. 1 minute, I was walking home thinking about leftover pizza. Next minute, boom, spaceship. You tell me what's happening because I am very lost. The crew looked even more unsettled. The woman, however, narrowed her eyes. She studied him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Finally, she let out a slow breath. My name is Commander Era, she said. And if you truly have no idea what you are, then you are even more dangerous than I feared. Michael swallowed. That didn't sound promising. He forced a weak chuckle. Define dangerous because I promise the worst thing I've done today is forget to tip my barista. Again. No one laughed. Tough crowd. Era turned to her crew, barking an order. The invisible restraint holding Michael down lifted instantly, and he scrambled upright, only to immediately be surrounded by at least 5 heavily armed guards. "Hey, whoa," he said, lifting his hands. "Can we take a moment to appreciate how not dangerous I am? Look at me. Do I look like a threat?" The guards did not look convinced. Era regarded him carefully. "You are coming with us." Michael sighed. "Yeah. Figured. I didn't have much of a choice." As they led him down the pristine metallic corridor of the ship, Michael's mind raced. What the hell had he gotten himself into? Why did they think humans were extinct? And why did Era look at him like he was the worst thing that had ever happened to her? One exploding vending machine at a time. Vending machine heroics. Daniel chucked it at the beast. It bounced off its head, earning a chitter. "Eat that, you overgrown roach. High in fiber, low in manners." Leon's laughter rang out, bright and wild, as she yanked a cable free, the core's hum rising to a fever pitch. "1 minute," she shouted, her hands a blur. "Daniel, the switch. There." She pointed to a lever on the terminal, half melted but still functional. He scrambled over, dodging another claw swipe, and gripped it, the metal searing his palm. The Kilix leader closed in, its mandibles wide, but Leon fired the plasma cutter, carving a gash across its leg. It stumbled, roaring, and Daniel yanked the lever down. The station shuddered violently, a deep groan echoing as the core's energy surged outward. Through the viewport, the Krilla ship lit up, a brief, brilliant flare before spiraling into the void, debris scattering like confetti. The holoscreen fizzled, Leon's sister vanishing in a burst of static, her sneer erased by the blast. The Car-X leader collapsed, its armor cracked, and the room fell silent, save for the station's labored breathing. Daniel slumped against the terminal, chest heaving, a grin tugging at his lips. "Well, Shiny, that's one way to redecorate. Guess we're not getting our deposit back." He glanced at Leon, who was panting, her ears drooping but her eyes alight with triumph. "You okay?" She nodded, dropping the cutter and brushing silver hands on her tunic. "Yes, it's over. She's gone." Her voice softened, a mix of relief and loss, but she smiled. "You didn't think I was her even when you could have." He scratched his head, the old anger a distant echo now. Not after the stew incident. Traitors don't cook that badly. They've got too much pride. He stood, offering her a hand, and she took it, her grip warm and steady. "Come on. Let's see if this heap's got enough juice to limp somewhere less doomed." The station groaned, its lights flickering but holding, a testament to their patchwork survival. They moved through the corridors, stepping over KRX husks and coolant slicks. The mess hall's exploded vending machine a silent monument to their defiance. Daniel felt lighter, not just from the fight but from the weeks of doubt he'd carried. Leon wasn't the shadow he'd feared. She was a spark, clumsy and bright, who had turned his exile into something worth fighting for. At the helm, he punched in coordinates for a fringe outpost. Risky, but better than drifting. Leon settled beside him, her ears perked as she studied the stars. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. "Somewhere with real food," he said, smirking. "And maybe a ship that doesn't grumble. You're stuck with me now, Shiny. Someone's got to teach you how to cook." Without starting a war, she laughed, the sound filling the cockpit, and the station lurched forward, a battered survivor carrying 2 unlikely souls. Daniel glanced at her, then at the void ahead, and felt the scars of betrayal fade. Not gone, but quieter. He'd started this journey alone, angry, lost in a galaxy that didn't care. Now, with Leon's laughter and those ridiculous ears beside him, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. The stars winked, indifferent but beautiful. And for once, he didn't mind the company. Because I was just there. I had a whole life, a very boring, very normal life that did not involve being part of an extinct species. Era's fingers tapped against the armrest of her chair. "Impossible." "Well, clearly not," Michael said, exasperated. "Because I'm right here being all alive and annoying. She didn't argue. Instead, she studied him with a quiet intensity. Then finally she stood. "This changes things," she murmured, almost to herself. Michael sat up. "Oh? Changes things how?" "Because I'd really like a change in my current prisoner. Status." Era ignored him, turning toward the guards at the door. She gave them a single order in their strange, fluid language, and they immediately straightened, exchanging nervous glances. Michael sighed. "That's not ominous at all." One of the guards stepped forward, gripping what Michael could only assume was a weapon, and motioned for him to stand. Michael groaned as he got to his feet. This better not involve any probing. Era gave him a deadpan look. "Why would we waste time probing an anomaly?" Michael blinked. "I don't actually have a good answer to that. Carry on." As they led him out of the room, Michael's mind reeled. If what Era said was true, then something was very, very wrong. Because as far as he knew, Earth was alive and well. So either Era was lying, or the truth was even worse than he imagined. Michael had been escorted through the ship for what felt like an eternity, but in reality was probably only 15 minutes. Still, 15 minutes was plenty of time to come to terms with the fact that, according to Space Elf Lady and her goon squad, he wasn't supposed to exist. The hallways of the ship were sleek, curving gently, as if the vessel itself had been designed with a sense of flow in mind. Unlike the cold industrial interiors of spaceships in movies, this place felt alive. The walls pulsed with a faint luminescence, shifting between subtle shades of blue and violet. It was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Michael stole a glance at the guards flanking him. They were all tall, all eerily silent, and all gripping their weapons like he was about to explode into a full-scale intergalactic menace at any second. Sighed. "All right, serious question. How do you guys handle bathroom breaks in space? Do you just—" "Silence," one of the guards barked. Michael rolled his eyes. "Wow. You guys would be terrible on road trips." The guard on his left twitched slightly but didn't respond. Michael couldn't tell if that was irritation or just general alien stoicism. He decided to assume the former, for his own amusement. After a few more turns, the hallway opened into a massive chamber, and Michael's brain short-circuited. The room was a marvel of engineering, a massive spherical structure with transparent walls that gave a full, unobstructed view of space. He had seen his fair share of sci-fi movies, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of standing in what was essentially a giant glass bubble surrounded by stars. Nebulae sprawled across the void like painted clouds. Distant planets glowed, faintly in the abyss. A ringed gas giant loomed in the distance, its swirling atmosphere shifting with slow, deliberate beauty. Michael's breath hitched. Holy crap. Despite the whole "I'm possibly the last human in the universe" situation, he couldn't help but feel the awe creeping up his spine. There were no words, no jokes, just a raw, humbling realization that he was so incredibly small in the grand scheme of things. Commander Era stood near the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind her back. She didn't turn when he entered. "Do you understand now?" Michael exhaled. "Understand what, exactly?" She gestured to the view. "This is the universe you should not be a part of." Michael frowned. "Okay, that's a little dramatic." Era turned then, her expression unreadable. "Everything you've ever known is a lie." Michael crossed his arms. "Gotta be honest, that's not the feel-good revelation I was hoping for." Era studied him for a long moment before stepping toward the center of the chamber. A section of the floor lit up beneath her feet, and suddenly, a holographic projection shimmered into existence around them. It was Earth. Or at least it had been. Michael's stomach lurched as he saw the projection twist and shift. The lush, blue-green planet flickered, then distorted. A pulse of something wrong rippled through the image, and in an instant Earth was gone, erased, replaced with a barren, lifeless rock orbiting a dim and dying sun. Michael swallowed hard. "That's not right." Era's voice was calm but firm. "That is the truth." Michael shook his head. No. I was just there. I had a job. A landlord who hated me. A favorite pizza place, He let out a sharp, frustrated breath. What the hell is this? Era tilted her head slightly. 1,000 cycles ago, Earth was wiped from existence. Not by war, not by some cosmic accident, but by its own nature. Michael's brain was still stuck on Earth doesn't exist. You're saying humans what? Imploded? Just spontaneously disappeared? Era's expression darkened. Humans were never meant to exist, Michael. You were an anomaly. A mistake the universe tried to correct. Michael let out a short, incredulous laugh. Oh, great. So now I'm a cosmic clerical error? Fantastic. Best news I've heard all day. Era ignored his sarcasm. The records say that something unnatural happened. Something beyond the comprehension of even the most advanced civilizations. Earth was erased as if it had never been there, at all. Michael ran a hand through his hair. His mind was a mess, torn between this is insane and, holy crap, what if it's true? Era studied him carefully. And yet, here you are. Michael forced himself to breathe. Okay, let's say, for the sake of my own sanity, that you're telling the truth. How the hell did I end up here then? Era hesitated, and that was when Michael saw it, the first crack in her confidence. You don't know, do you? He said slowly. Era's jaw tightened. We have theories. Michael groaned. Oh, fantastic. Let me guess. One of them involves me being some kind of space demon. Silence. Michael blinked. Oh, come on. Era turned back toward the hologram. The fact that you exist means something has changed, something fundamental. We do not know how or why, but we do know this. If the universe erased humans once, it may do so again. Michael inhaled sharply. You're saying I might just disappear? Era didn't answer immediately. We do not know what happens when something defies the natural order. Michael let out a slow breath. Well, that's just great. Love being a walking paradox. Era turned back to him. There is one way to find out. Michael frowned. I'm both intrigued and terrified. Mostly terrified. Era pressed a button on her wrist device and the projection shifted. This time, a new image appeared. A station floating on the edge of a swirling violet anomaly. It pulsed and flickered like reality. Itself was fraying at the seams. Michael pointed at it. And that is... Ira's voice was steady. A tear in space-time. A distortion where the laws of reality no longer apply. Michael sighed. Of course it is. She turned to him, eyes unreadable. If there are answers to be found, they will be there. Michael exhaled, staring at the ominous swirling rift. He had a feeling that whatever lay beyond that anomaly wasn't just going to give him answers. It was going to change everything. Michael had always assumed that if he ever found himself on an alien spaceship, staring at a massive swirling rift in space-time, his first reaction would be something appropriately cool. Maybe a stoic nod. A deep, brooding statement about the mysteries of the universe. Something cinematic. Instead, what actually came out of his mouth was, yeah, so this is definitely where I die. Era, who had probably expected something more profound, blinked at him. We have not determined the extent of the danger yet. Michael threw up his hands. Oh, fantastic. The extent of the danger. So we're sure it's dangerous. Just not how much. He pointed dramatically at the rift, which pulsed like it was alive. That right there? That is the literal definition of nope. Era sighed, clearly deciding to ignore his outburst. She gestured toward the glowing anomaly. This distortion is unlike anything we have encountered before. It does not obey the laws of physics. Time moves irregularly within its proximity. Matter bends. Observations contradict themselves. Michael narrowed his eyes at her. So what I'm hearing is, we have no idea what it is, but let's go poke it with a stick. Era folded her arms. It may hold the answers we need. Michael rubbed. his temples. See, that sounds logical and all, but let me just point something out. Historically, when people investigate ominous, swirling space things, bad stuff happens. Ever seen a horror movie or a science fiction movie or literally any human media? Because this is textbook bad decision-making. Ira tilted her head. And yet, we are still here. Michael groaned. Yeah, well, we all make mistakes. The ship shuddered slightly and an eerie hum filled the air. The rift flickered, shifting colors in ways Michael's brain struggled to process. One moment, it was deep purple. Then it bled into a green that looked wrong, like a color that wasn't supposed to exist. He had to look away before his head started to hurt. The guards behind them fidgeted, replaced with a barren, lifeless rock orbiting a dim and dying sun. Michael swallowed hard. That's not right. Ira's voice was calm but firm. That is the truth. Michael shook his head. No. I was just there. I had a job. A landlord who hated me. A favorite pizza place He let out a sharp, frustrated breath. What the hell is this? Ira tilted her head slightly. 1,000 cycles ago, Earth was wiped from existence. Not by war, not by some cosmic accident, but by its own nature. Michael's brain was still stuck on Earth doesn't exist. You're saying humans what? Imploded? Just spontaneously disappeared? Ira's expression darkened. Humans were never meant to exist, Michael. You were an anomaly, a mistake the universe tried to correct. Michael let out a short, incredulous laugh. Oh, great. So now I'm a cosmic clerical error? Fantastic. Best news I've heard all day. Ira ignored his sarcasm. The records say that something unnatural happened, something beyond the comprehension of even the most advanced civilizations. Earth was erased as if it had never been there, at all. Michael ran a hand through his hair. His mind was a mess, torn between this is insane and, holy crap, what if it's true? Ira studied him carefully. And yet, here you are. Michael forced himself to breathe. Okay, let's say for the sake of my own sanity that you're telling the truth. How the hell did I end up here then? Ira hesitated. And that was when Michael saw it, the first crack in her confidence. You don't know, do you? He said slowly. Ira's jaw tightened. We have theories. Michael groaned. Oh, fantastic. Let me guess. One of them involves me being some kind of space demon. Silence. Michael blinked. Oh, come on. Ira turned back toward the hologram. The fact that you exist means something has changed, something fundamental. We do not know how or why, but we do know this. If the universe erased humans once, it may do so again. Michael inhaled sharply. You're saying I might just disappear? Ira didn't answer immediately. We do not know what happens when something defies the natural order. Michael let out a slow breath. Well, that's just great. Love being a walking paradox. Ira turned back to him. There is one way to find out. Michael frowned. I'm both. Intrigued and terrified. Mostly terrified. Ira pressed a button on her wrist device and the projection shifted. This time, a new image appeared. A station floating on the edge of a swirling violet anomaly. It pulsed and flickered like reality. Itself was fraying at the seams. Michael pointed at it. And that is... Ira's voice was steady. A tear in space-time. A distortion where the laws of reality no longer apply. Michael sighed. Of course it is. She turned to him, eyes unreadable. If there are answers to be found, they will be there. Michael exhaled, staring at the ominous swirling rift. He had a feeling that whatever lay beyond that anomaly wasn't just going to give him answers. It was going to change everything. Michael had always assumed that if he ever found himself on an alien spaceship, staring at a massive swirling rift in spacetime, his first reaction would be something appropriately cool. Maybe a stoic nod. A deep, brooding statement about the mysteries of the universe. Something cinematic. Instead, what actually came out of his mouth was, "Yeah, so this is definitely where I die." Era, who had probably expected something more profound, blinked at him. "We have not determined the extent of the danger yet." Michael threw up his hands. "Oh, fantastic, the extent of the danger. So we're sure it's dangerous, just not how much." He pointed dramatically at the rift, which pulsed like it was alive. "That right there? That is the literal definition of nope." Era sighed, clearly deciding to ignore his outburst. She gestured toward the glowing anomaly. "This distortion is unlike anything we have encountered before. It does not obey the laws of physics. Time moves irregularly within its proximity. Matter bends. Observations contradict themselves." Michael narrowed his eyes at her. "So what I'm hearing is, we have no idea what it is, but let's go poke it with a stick." Era folded her arms. "It may hold the answers we need." Michael rubbed his temples. "See, that sounds logical and all, but let me just point something out. Historically, when people investigate ominous, swirling space things, bad stuff happens. Ever seen a horror movie? Or a science fiction movie? Or literally any human media? Because this is textbook bad decision-making." Ira tilted her head. "And yet, we are still here." Michael groaned. "Yeah, well, we all make mistakes." The ship shuddered slightly, and an eerie hum filled the air. The rift flickered, shifting colors in ways Michael's brain struggled to process. One moment, it was deep purple, then it bled into a green that looked wrong, like a color that wasn't supposed to exist. He had to look away before his head started to hurt. The guards behind them fidgeted, gripping their weapons tighter. Even they, despite their rigid training and unshakable discipline, were unnerved. Michael crossed his arms. "So what's the plan? We send a drone in, analyze the data, and not throw the very confused human into it?" Ira didn't answer immediately, and that was not comforting. Michael's eyes widened. "Wait, you are not thinking of throwing me in there?" Ira hesitated. "You are. Don't you dare say I'm the anomaly." She pressed her lips together. Michael groaned. "Come on. That's like having a weird rash and deciding the best course of action is to set yourself on fire just to see what happens." Era exhaled slowly, as if she was really trying to be patient with him. "We will not force you, but if you are willing..." Michael held up a hand. "Nope, nope. Let's put a big old pause on that thought. Because let's be honest here, when has anyone ever willingly walked into an ominous void of possible death?" Voice suddenly chimed in from a nearby panel. Robotic, clear, sterile. Sensors detect fluctuations in subject's biological signature. Michael frowned. What now?" Era turned to the screen, brows furrowing. "Explain." The robotic voice continued. "Temporal instability detected. Subject does not align with expected universal parameters." Michael squinted. "Okay, I don't love the phrase temporal instability. That sounds deeply concerning." Era's eyes flicked between him and the glowing rift. "You are tied to this disturbance." Michael threw his hands up. "Great. Love that for me. First I find out I shouldn't exist, and now I'm quantum linked to a nightmare portal. Best day ever." Era ignored him, pressing a few buttons on the console. The screen flickered, showing a strange readout, waves of energy pulsing from the rift, directly matching something inside Michael. His stomach dropped. "Oh, that's bad, isn't it?" Era's expression was unreadable. "It means you are a key to understanding it." Michael pinched the bridge of his nose. "Why can't I ever be the key to, I don't know, winning a lottery? Or getting a free burrito? Why does it always have to be something that might kill me?" Era tapped something on her wrist device. A small drone detached from the ceiling and hovered in the air, blinking softly as it approached the rift. The moment it crossed into the anomaly, it vanished. Not exploded. Not burned. Not warped. Just gone. Michael's stomach twisted. "Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a terrible sign." Era studied the data. It was not destroyed. It was displaced. Michael blinked. Displaced where? AA's gaze flickered, toward him, then back to the rift. Unknown. Michael exhaled sharply. Oh, fantastic. This is just so reassuring. A tense silence settled between them. Finally, AA spoke. Michael, if you step into that rift, you may find answers to why you exist. Michael stared at the swirling void, his mind racing. There were so many reasons not to do this, so many ways this could end in a spectacularly awful fashion. But there was also one big question gnawing at him. Why was he still here? If Earth had truly been erased, if humans were wiped out, then how did he end up in a world where they were nothing more than a myth? And why, out of all the possible people, was he the one still standing? Michael exhaled. All right, fine. I'll do it. AA blinked, surprised. Michael pointed a finger at her. But if I die, I'm totally haunting you. AA simply nodded. Understood. Michael sighed, rolling his shoulders like that would somehow prepare him for walking into a freaking space-time anomaly. He took a few steps forward, stopping right at the edge of the swirling distortion. He took a deep breath and stepped through. Stepping into a space-time anomaly wasn't exactly on Michael's bucket list. Then again, neither was getting abducted by an alien woman with anxiety issues over his existence. Yet here he was. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, reality folded, not in a violent, dramatic way, but in the deeply unsettling way that made his brain feel like it was doing gymnastics it hadn't trained for. 1 second, he was on Era's ship. The next, he was somewhere else. Michael stumbled forward, catching himself just before he face-planted onto what looked like solid ground. Except it wasn't solid. It shifted, rippling beneath him like water, but still somehow supporting his weight. Okay, he breathed, straightening. Not dead. That's a win. The air, or whatever passed for air here, was thick with a faint luminescent mist. Shapes flickered in the distance, shifting as if they couldn't decide what they were supposed to. Michael turned, expecting to see the rift behind him. It wasn't there. His stomach did a very uncomfortable flip. Oh, that's bad. Panic started to creep in, but he shoved it down. Nope, not freaking out yet. Instead, he focused on his surroundings. The landscape was bizarre, like someone had taken reality, crumpled it up, and then smoothed it out, almost correctly. The sky wasn't really a sky, but a swirling tapestry of stars that moved in slow, rhythmic waves. Geometric structures, somewhere between natural rock formations and impossible architecture, rose in the distance, defying physics in a way that made his head hurt. Michael let out a slow breath. All right, so either I'm in a cosmic waiting room, or I just stepped into an alternate dimension where physics went on vacation. A voice echoed behind him. You are not supposed to be here. Michael whirled around so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Standing a few yards away was, well, someone. They, or it, looked humanoid at first glance, but their form glitched, flickering between solid and translucent like a bad TV signal. Their face was unreadable, shifting in subtle, unsettling ways like reality itself couldn't quite hold on to what they were supposed to look like. Michael blinked. Okay, cool. Creepy, interdimensional ghost person. Love that for me. The figure took a step closer. Your presence is an error. Michael let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot lately. The figure tilted its head, studying him. You are human. Michael sighed. Well, the last time I checked, yeah. Unless this place comes with an automatic species reassignment, in which case... He glanced down at himself. Oh, good. Still got all my parts. The figure remained silent, for a moment before murmuring, this was not meant to happen again. Michael's eyebrow twitched. Okay, that is not a comforting sentence. The figure raised a hand, and suddenly, the space around them shifted. Images flashed, moments of Earth, but fragmented, distorted, cities dissolving into nothingness, people frozen in mid-motion, their bodies unraveling like smoke. the planet itself fading, erased from existence. Michael's stomach twisted. That's Earth, isn't it? The figure nodded. It was erased, corrected. Humanity was a deviation, a fracture in the universal pattern. Michael felt a chill creep down his spine. And yet here I am. The figure's form flickered violently, for a moment, as if his very existence was causing interference. An anomaly, a remnant of a past that should no longer be. Michael let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his hair. You know, you guys keep calling me an anomaly, but nobody's bothering to explain why I'm still here. If humans were erased, why didn't I go poof with the rest of them? The figure hesitated. You were displaced. Michael's eyes narrowed. Displaced how? The figure's voice became distorted, like multiple overlapping frequencies. Something interfered, a force beyond our comprehension. You were extracted. Michael frowned. Extracted by what? The figure's form glitched again. Unknown. Michael let out a slow, frustrated breath. Oh, come on. First I find out my entire species got Thanos snapped, out of existence, and now I'm some interdimensional stray. Who just picked me up, and why? The figure remained silent for a long moment before speaking again. There is only one way to find out. Michael crossed his arms. Oh, let me guess. It involves something extremely dangerous, possibly stupid, and with a very high chance of me dying horribly. The figure tilted its head. Correct. Michael groaned. You guys really need to work on your sales pitch. Before he could protest further, the air around them rippled and suddenly the world shifted again. The mist cleared. The strange geometry collapsed into something more structured, more recognizable. And just like that, Michael was standing in the middle of a city. But not just any city. It was Earth, or at least a version of it. Michael's breath hitched as he took in the sight of towering buildings, streets stretching into the distance, flickering neon signs glowing against the night sky. But something was off. The streets were empty. No people. No sound. It was like a memory of Earth, playing on a loop, but missing the thing that made it feel real. Michael swallowed hard. Okay. Officially freaked out. The figure appeared beside him. This is a fragment, a remnant of what was lost. Michael turned slowly, his heart hammering. So what? Earth. The world wasn't completely around him. Red. The figure's form flickered. There are echoes, pieces of what was, trapped between existence and oblivion. Michael felt a shiver crawl down his spine. And what am I supposed to do with that information? The figure's voice resonated through the empty streets. Find the source. Find the one who saved you. Michael stared at them, jaw tightening. You mean, whoever or whatever pulled me out before Earth got deleted? The figure nodded. They hold the key to the truth. Michael let out a slow breath, glancing up at the flickering city around him. He had no idea what he was walking into, no idea what he was about to uncover. But one thing was clear. Someone or something had saved him, and now he needed to find out why. Michael took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. All right, he muttered, adjusting his stance as he surveyed the empty city around him. Step 1, don't panic. Step 2, figure out what the hell is going on. Step 3, hopefully not die. The figure beside him remained silent, watching with an unreadable expression. If they even had expressions. They still flickered in and out of solidity, like a bad hologram with existential issues. Michael turned to them, rubbing the back of his neck. So, any helpful hints on where I'm supposed to start looking? Or do I just start knocking on doors and asking, hey, did you happen to save me from the destruction of my entire species? The figure didn't react to his sarcasm. The echoes are unstable. Some will reveal answers, others will mislead. Your path will not be straightforward. Michael sighed. Of course it won't. Wouldn't want my first interdimensional scavenger hunt to be too easy. The figure lifted a flickering hand and gestured toward the city. Time does not move naturally here. Events are fragmented. You must be careful. Michael frowned. So, what? I could be walking into a moment from 10,000 years ago, or 5 minutes before everything got wiped? Correct. Michael let out a slow breath. Neat. Love that. He hesitated, before asking the real question burning in his mind. And what happens if I, touch something I shouldn't? The figure's form glitched violently, and for the first time their voice wavered. Then you may become part of the echo yourself. Michael's stomach dropped. Yeah. Okay. No touching. Got it. He turned back toward the city and took a cautious step forward. The moment his foot touched the pavement, the world shivered. A ripple passed through the buildings like someone had dropped a stone into the fabric of reality. Then, the streets weren't empty anymore. Michael blinked, his brain struggling to catch up. 1 second, he had been standing in a dead city, and the next it was alive. People walked past him, their faces flickering in and out of focus. Hover cars zipped through the air. Neon lights cast long, colorful shadows over streets bustling with life. But something was wrong. The people weren't quite real. Their faces blurred at the edges, their voices overlapping in an eerie murmur, like a radio caught between stations. Turned his head, and suddenly one of them froze mid-step. Their form shimmered before snapping back into movement a second later. Michael shivered. Okay, this is officially top-tier creepy. He reached out instinctively but stopped himself just short of touching one of the figures. No touching. Right, unless he wanted to become a permanent ghost in the worst VR simulation ever. Instead, he listened. The overlapping voices didn't make sense at first, just snippets of conversation, echoes of lives that no longer existed. But then through the chaos, one voice cut through. We don't have much time. Michael stiffened. The voice was clear. Too clear. Like it was meant for him. He turned, searching for the source, and spotted something strange. Unlike the other figures who flickered in and out of focus, one person stood solid. A woman, her back turned to him, wearing a long coat that shimmered like liquid metal. Michael hesitated, then took a slow step toward her. Hey, excuse me? She didn't turn around, but she spoke again. You need to go deeper. The first layer won't give you the answers you're looking for. Michael blinked. Okay, see, that's incredibly vague. Go deeper where? The woman finally turned and Michael's breath caught. Her ears. They were long, like eras. He stumbled back a step. You're... The woman narrowed her eyes. Quiet. They're listening. Michael opened his mouth, but before he could say anything else, the entire city shattered. One moment he was standing in the crowded streets, and the next, everything broke apart like glass. The world collapsed around him, folding in on itself. Reality twisting like a torn-up film reel. And then, Michael fell. Michael didn't fall down exactly. It was more like falling in every direction at once. His stomach flipped, his limbs flailing as he tumbled through a kaleidoscope of images. Flashes of places he didn't recognize, moments that didn't belong to him, and then, just as suddenly as it started, he landed, flat on his back. Michael groaned. Oh, come on. Can I get abducted one time without breaking the laws of physics just once? A voice chuckled nearby. You're adapting faster than most. Michael sat up, rubbing his head. Oh, great. More cryptic nonsense. Just what I needed. He turned toward the voice and froze. It was her, the woman with the long ears. But now she wasn't just some fragmented echo. She was real, solid, standing before him like she had been waiting for him to arrive. Michael stared at her, his brain working overtime. Who are you? The woman tilted her head, a small smirk playing at her lips. A better question might be, who saved you? Michael exhaled sharply. Yeah, I've been trying to figure that one out. He narrowed his eyes. Was it you? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned, gesturing towards something. Behind him, Michael hesitated, then followed her gaze, and his breath caught. A massive structure floated in the distance. A station? A ship? He couldn't tell. But it hummed with energy, pulsing in a way that felt familiar. The woman spoke again, her voice quiet. "You're not just an anomaly, Michael. You're a survivor. And if you want to understand why, you'll need to keep going." Michael exhaled slowly. "Yeah, okay, sure, why not? Let's keep going deeper into the weirdest fever dream of my life." The woman smirked again. "Good, because we don't have much time." Michael groaned. Why does nobody ever have much time? Does anything in the universe operate on a reasonable schedule? The woman just turned and started walking toward the structure, motioning for him to follow. Michael sighed and pushed himself up. Right, here we go again. At this point, he had officially lost count of how many times he had stepped into the unknown. He might as well start a loyalty card for interdimensional travel. 9 mind-bending experiences and the 10th one's free. As he followed the long-eared woman toward the massive floating structure, he couldn't help but sigh. So do I at least get a t-shirt after all this? Something that says I survived. Reality-breaking nonsense, and all I got was this lousy existential crisis. The woman glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Your humor is a defense mechanism. Michael scoffed. Yeah, well, it's either that or cry, and I don't think interdimensional voids come with tissues. She said nothing, only continuing. Forward. The closer they got to the structure, the more Michael could feel it. An odd hum in the air, a pulsing energy that made the hairs on his arms stand up. It wasn't just a thing. It was alive. Or at least, something inside it was. The woman finally stopped before a sleek metallic doorway that shimmered, as if it wasn't fully real. With a single touch of her fingers, it parted soundlessly, revealing a vast chamber inside. Michael stepped through and, immediately, his breath hitched. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen. Massive columns of light stretched from floor to ceiling, flickering like distant stars. Strange floating glyphs hovered in the air, shifting constantly, rewriting themselves in real time, and at the center of it all, a suspended pod, glowing with a soft golden light. Inside it, Michael, his own body, floating, unconscious, encased in a transparent shell. Michael stared, then blinked several times, then very carefully he turned to the woman. Okay, now I'm no expert in whatever the hell this is, but I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be a singular entity. The woman exhaled slowly. That is the real you. Michael frowned. Right, because I've been fake this whole time? The woman shook her head. You are a remnant, a displaced echo of the original. Michael's stomach turned uneasily. I'm an echo? He gestured wildly to himself. I feel pretty solid for an echo. The woman stepped closer to the pod, studying the unconscious Michael inside. When Earth was erased, someone intervened. They couldn't save the entire species, but they could save one. You were extracted at the last possible moment. Michael rubbed his temples. Okay, let's say I buy that. What about me? This version. He pointed to himself. If that's the real me in there, then what am I? The woman hesitated. The moment you were extracted, your presence created an anomaly. Reality split. The you standing here is a byproduct of that event, a fragment left behind when the original was preserved. Michael stared at her, then at the pod. So what you're saying is, I'm like a cosmic backup file? The woman's lips twitched slightly. That is not an entirely incorrect analogy. Michael groaned. Perfect. I'm a glitch, a walking existential. Clerical error. He threw up his hands. Why does this stuff always happen to me? The woman's expression softened. Because you weren't supposed to exist. And yet, here you are. Michael frowned, processing that. He turned back to the pod, watching his unconscious self float weightlessly. His mind swirled with questions. What would happen if he woke up? Would he still exist? Was he just temporary? The woman must have sensed his thoughts. A choice must be made. Michael swallowed hard. What kind of choice? She gestured toward the pod. If the original wakes, this version of you, the remnant, may cease to be. Your consciousness would merge, become whole again. Michael exhaled slowly. And if I don't? The woman hesitated. Then you will remain as you are, but alone. The real you will stay in stasis, and you will continue existing as a fragment, outside the normal flow of time. Michael let out a dry laugh. So either I merge and risk fading away, or I stay separate and basically become a cosmic ghost. The woman nodded. Yes. Michael sighed, dragging a hand down his face. Why are these choices never easy? He stared at the pod, at the real him, and slowly he understood. All this time he had felt off, like something was missing, because it was. He wasn't whole. Michael squared his shoulders and turned back to the woman. All right, wake him up. She studied him carefully. Are you certain? Michael forced a grin. Well, considering the alternative is floating around as a one-man haunted house forever? Yeah, I think I'm good. The woman nodded solemnly, then stepped forward and placed her hand on the pod. The light surrounding it pulsed. Slowly, the unconscious Michael inside began to stir. A deep hum vibrated through the chamber as reality itself seemed to shift. Michael felt it before he saw it. His body tingled. His form grew lighter. His vision blurred. He was merging. For a split second he saw everything, the destruction of Earth, the force that had pulled him away, the thing that had saved him, hidden deep within the folds of existence itself. And then he woke up. Michael gasped as his eyes flew open. He was lying inside the pod. The real him. He blinked rapidly, sitting up, breath coming in short, sharp bursts. His hands trembled, but he was whole. The woman stood before him, watching with a quiet intensity. Michael let out a shaky laugh. Well, that was weird. She arched a delicate brow. You have survived something no human was meant to. Michael groaned, rubbing his face. Yeah, well, humans are stubborn like that. He let out a slow breath. So, what now? The woman studied him for a long moment before speaking. Now, you decide what to do with your second chance. Michael glanced around the chamber, then back at her. You said someone saved me. Do you know who? The woman's gaze flickered. Not yet. Yet. But you are proof that they exist. And if they saved you, they may have saved others. Michael's heart pounded. Others. He wasn't alone. A slow, determined grin spread across his face. Well then, he said, stepping forward. Let's go find them.